Some of these machines were so powerful they could pull a water tower a bulldozer couldn't budge. Some had 2 engines bolted nose to tail. One had 8 wheels and a television screen inside the cab back in 1977. They outworked entire fleets of tractors, terrified the competition, and then they vanished, forgotten in barns, scrapyards, and dusty museum corners. Today we're digging up 10 monster farm machines the history books quietly buried, and the stories behind them are absolutely wild. Number 10. The Doe Triple-D. Picture a farmer in Essex, England in the mid-1950s staring at heavy clay soil that his 50-horsepower tractor simply could not handle. His name was George Pryor, and instead of waiting for a factory to build him something bigger, he did something insane. He took 2 Fordson Power Major tractors, stripped the front wheels and axles off both, and bolted them together nose to tail using a turntable steered by hydraulic rams. The result was a double-engine 4-wheel drive monster that produced over 100 horsepower, roughly double anything you could buy at the time. It worked so well that the local Ford dealer, Ernest Doe and Sons of Ulting, Essex, agreed to build them for sale. The first one was completed in 1958 as the Doe Dual Power, then relaunched a year later as the Doe Dual Drive, nicknamed the Triple-D. Here's the genius part. One driver sat on the rear tractor and controlled the front engine's clutch and gears through hydraulic slave cylinders. 2 engines, 2 gearboxes, 1 operator, and a 90-degree pivot in the middle that let this ungainly beast turn tighter than you'd ever expect. Later versions like the Doe 130, based on the Ford 5000, pushed output past 130 horsepower, and the top Triple-D 150 reached 150. They were exported everywhere: Europe, Scandinavia, Israel, Africa, even Russia. But only a few hundred were ever built. Why did it die? Because single-engine 4-wheel drive tractors from rivals like County and Muir Hill soon delivered the same power for far less money and half the complexity. The Triple-D became an expensive relic almost overnight. Today, a genuine one can sell at auction for tens of thousands of pounds, a forgotten machine that farmers now fight to own. Number 9. The Case 1200 Traction King. In the great horsepower race of the 1960s, every tractor company was scrambling to build an affordable machine that could push past 100 horsepower without spinning its wheels helplessly in the dirt. J.I. Case entered that fight in 1963, and by March 1964 the first pre-production Case 1200 Traction King rolled out. Case did something clever to keep the price down. They built it from as many off-the-shelf parts as possible: a pair of Eaton axles, a Clark 6-speed transmission, and their own 451 cubic inch turbocharged diesel making around 120 PTO horsepower. But the truly groundbreaking feature was the steering. Unlike the articulated machines that bent in the middle, the Traction King used a rigid frame with a hydraulic 4-wheel steering system, and it gave the operator 4 separate modes. You could steer with just the front wheels, just the rear wheels, both sets coordinated together for an incredibly tight turn, or crab steer, where all 4 wheels angled the same direction to slide the whole tractor sideways on a hillside or line it up with an implement. It's widely credited as the first tractor to offer a system like this. Farmers loved the maneuverability. The catch? To keep the tractor affordable, Case bolted a turbocharger onto the 451 engine, which was never originally designed to handle one, and that created reliability headaches over the long haul. Still, more than 1,500 were built between 1966 and 1969, and the idea was so good that Case kept refining 4-wheel steering for nearly 3 decades. The distinctive boxy Traction King, later versions grew to over 200 horsepower, is mostly forgotten now, but you'll still spot the big white crab steer cases turning heads at farm retirement auctions. Number 8. The Minneapolis-Moline A4T-1600. Here's a strange one. In the late 1960s, the White Motor Corporation owned 3 separate tractor brands at once: Oliver, Cockshut, and Minneapolis-Moline. As farms exploded in size and demanded more power, White needed a big articulated 4-wheel drive tractor fast. So they built one machine and slapped 4 different names on it. The Minneapolis-Moline A4T-1600 was mechanically identical to the Oliver 2655, the Cockshut A4T-1600, and the White A4T-1600 Plainsman. Same tractor, 4 badges, 4 paint schemes. Underneath sat a 504 cubic inch 8.3-liter 6-cylinder diesel. The earlier A4T-1400 version made about 139 PTO horsepower. The uprated 1600 pushed that to roughly 143 tested horsepower on the dyno, from an engine rated near 169 horsepower. This was a proper articulated machine. It bent in the middle for traction and turning, with a full 10 forward-speed transmission and a cab that, for its day, gave the operator real protection from the elements. It could haul big tillage tools across the huge new farms of the prairies and plains, but the A4T had a short life. Minneapolis-Moline built them only from October 1969 through May 1972, with a total of just 1,676 units across all the badge variations. Then White consolidated everything into its own in-house designs, and the Minneapolis-Moline and Oliver names, two of the proudest in American farming, faded into history. Today, collectors prize the yellow Moline and the green and white Oliver versions precisely because so few were made, and because they represent the last gasp of legendary brands right before they disappeared for good. An unstoppable worker, killed not by failure, but by corporate consolidation. Number 7. The County 1884. While America was building giant articulated tractors, the British took a completely different path, and the County 1884 was the ultimate expression of it. County Commercial Cars, based in England, had been building four-wheel drive tractors since the 1940s, but instead of bending in the middle, their machines used equal-sized wheels all round, driven by twin propeller shafts running down each side of the tractor. Launched in 1980, the County 1884 was the company's crowning achievement and its last great tractor. It was built around the Ford TW30 skid unit, using a Ford 401 cubic inch six-cylinder engine that was turbocharged and intercooled to produce a mighty 188 horsepower. In 1980, on a British farm, that was colossal. This was a machine for the very biggest arable operations, prized for the tremendous traction and hillside stability that County's four equal wheels delivered. But it was also enormous and expensive, weighing around 8 tons and costing nearly £30,000 when new. And that's where the story turns tragic. County was already sliding into financial trouble. Only about 20 examples of the 1884 were ever built before the company collapsed in 1983. That tiny production number is exactly why the 1884 became legendary. It's one of the most sought-after tractors among British collectors, a genuine holy grail machine. It's believed only around 24 survive worldwide, with a few found working as far away as New Zealand and others re-imported from abroad by enthusiasts desperate to own one. The County 1884 was a brute that could outpull almost anything on British soil, and it went extinct almost the moment it was born. Number 6. The Wagner TR-14. Before John Deere, before Steiger, before Big Bud, there were the Wagner brothers of Portland, Oregon. 7 of them. They'd been building machinery for logging and mining since the 1920s, and after World War II, one brother, Elmer, came home from Europe with an idea. In 1949, he prototyped an articulated four-wheel drive vehicle that bent in the middle so all four wheels stayed planted and pulling, even in rough terrain. In 1954, the 7 brothers teamed up with a partner named J. Burke Long and formed Wagner Tractor Incorporated. They are widely credited with building the first successful articulated four-wheel drive farm tractors in the world, the machines that every modern big four-wheel drive tractor descends from. By late 1955, full production was rolling on 3 models, the TR6, TR9, and the flagship TR-14, all powered by Cummins diesels. The TR-14 was the giant of the group, 150 engine horsepower at a time when most farm tractors made 40 or 50. When it was tested at Nebraska in 1959, it cranked out 155 drawbar horsepower. Trade magazines started comparing these Wagners to the big crawler bulldozers used out west, because that's the kind of work they could do. The secret was Wagner's patented Power Flex coupling, which let the tractor twist and oscillate over uneven ground while still driving all 4 wheels. So why is Wagner forgotten? In 1961, the company was sold to the FWD Corporation and renamed FWD Wagner. Then came the twist that erased them. In 1969, John Deere signed a deal to buy Wagner's biggest tractors, and a no-compete clause meant Wagner couldn't sell tractors under its own name. Deere used those years to develop its own successful four-wheel drives, then walked away, and Wagner, the true pioneer of the whole category, was quietly finished off by the very giant it had helped create. Number 5. The John Deere 8010 and 8020. When independent upstarts like Wagner and Steiger started building heavy four-wheel drive tractors in the 1950s, the big established manufacturers panicked. John Deere's answer was unveiled in 1959, and it was a genuine giant. The John Deere 8010 was the most powerful tractor Deere had ever made, and its first four-wheel drive machine. The numbers were staggering for the time. It stood taller than a man could reach, weighed around 20,000 to 25,000 pounds, and was powered by a General Motors Detroit Diesel 671, a screaming two-cycle six-cylinder engine putting out about 215 horsepower, with roughly 150 of that reaching the drawbar. It could pull an 8-bottom plow, something no ordinary tractor of the era could dream of. It had air brakes, like a truck. On paper, it was the future. In reality, it was a costly stumble. The 8010 was priced sky-high, around $30,000, an enormous sum in 1960. Worse, it suffered from problems, including its transmission. Only about 100 Model 8010s were ever built, and Deere ended up recalling virtually every single one and converting them into the improved 8020 version. Even then, total production stayed tiny, so the 8010 goes down as one of John Deere's rare commercial flops. But here's why it still matters. It was the machine that dragged Deere kicking and screaming into the era of high horsepower, four-wheel drive farming. The lessons Deere learned from this troubled giant fed directly into the successful four-wheel drives that followed. Today, an original 8010 is one of the rarest and most valuable collector John Deeres in existence, a magnificent failure that quietly pointed the entire industry toward the future. Number 4. The International Harvester 4300 Crunch. If ever a machine earned a nickname, it was this one. International Harvester's 4300 was so brutally strong that farmers started calling it Crunch because, as the story went, it could pull anything not tied down. There's a legend that a water tower once needed moving, a D6 crawler couldn't shift it, and the 4300 dragged it away. International built this beast through its Huff division, a maker of massive construction loaders in Libertyville, Illinois, between 1961 and 1965, and you could tell, everything about the 4300 was oversized. Its engine was a turbocharged DT817 diesel, 817 cubic inches, 13.4 liters of displacement, producing 300 horsepower and, when tested at Nebraska, over 200 horsepower right at the drawbar. It tipped the scales at nearly 30,000 pounds. It also had a party trick. The 4300 offered 3 steering modes: normal front-wheel steering, a full 4-wheel steer mode for power turns, and a crab steer mode where all 4 wheels turned the same way to hold the machine on a side hill or ease it out of a wet, muddy slough. For 1961, that was space-age technology. But Crunch had problems worthy of its size. The original standard gear transmission overheated badly under constant heavy load, cooking the operator's feet in the process, and the huge, perfectly balanced gears kept spinning when you pushed the clutch, making shifts slow and clumsy. It was also monstrously expensive and frankly had a lot of engine for not that much rated horsepower, so International built just 44 of them. Today, only around 6 are believed to survive. The 4300 was a fever dream of raw power from a company trying to outmuscle everyone, and almost nobody remembers it existed. Number 3. Steiger No. 1. Barney. This is the machine that launched an empire, and it was built in a barn. In the late 1950s, the Steiger family, Father John and sons Douglas and Maurice, were farming a couple thousand acres near Red Lake Falls, Minnesota. Their operation had outgrown every tractor money could buy, so they made a decision that sounds crazy: they'd build their own. Over the winter of 1957 and 1958, working in a converted abandoned dairy barn, the 3 Steiger men hand-built a massive articulated 4-wheel drive tractor almost entirely from salvaged and used parts. The engine was pulled from a worn-out Alice Chalmers crawler. They scrounged components from mining equipment off Minnesota's Iron Range. Douglas, a self-taught mechanical genius with no formal engineering training, drew up the design. Maurice handled the welding and fabrication. The whole machine cost about $9,200 in materials and took roughly 57 days to complete. The finished tractor weighed a colossal 24,000 pounds, wore a coat of lurid, unmistakable green paint, and single-handedly did the work of all 3 of the family's smaller tractors. A Case IH employee later nicknamed it Barney, and the name stuck. Neighbors saw it working and immediately started asking the Steigers to build them one too. That's exactly what happened. In 1963, persuaded by a local dealer named Earl Christensen, the Steigers officially went into the tractor business. From that barn-built one-off, Steiger grew into one of the most important four-wheel drive tractor makers in the entire world, moving to Fargo, North Dakota in 1969 and eventually building tractors for Ford, International Harvester, Massey Ferguson and Alice Chalmers. That original homemade green giant, Barney, survives today in a museum, the humble ancestor of practically every big articulated tractor working the plains right now. Number 2. The versatile 1080 Big Roy. In 1977, a Canadian company decided to build the most outrageous farm tractor the world had ever seen, and there was really only one reason: bragging rights. A quiet war was brewing over who could build the biggest, most powerful tractor on earth, and Versatile, based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, threw down an absolute monster of an answer. It was named Big Roy, after the company's larger-than-life boss, Roy Robinson. Big Roy was not articulated in the usual way. It had 8 driven wheels, 4 axles, all of them powered, making it an 8x8. Behind the cab sat a 19-liter Cummins engine producing 600 horsepower, driving through a 6-speed transmission to every single wheel. The machine stretched over 30 feet long and weighed more than 30 tons when ballasted for the field, and it had a feature straight out of science fiction for 1977. Because the tall engine compartment completely blocked the driver's view to the rear, Versatile installed a closed-circuit television system. A dust-proof camera pointed down at the drawbar, feeding a 9-inch monitor mounted in the dashboard. A backup camera, decades before they showed up in cars. But for all its power and cleverness, Big Roy had one fatal flaw. With 4 wheels tracking in a single line on each side, all that weight ran over the exact same strip of ground 4 times, and it packed the soil down so hard it damaged the very fields it was meant to farm. That soil compaction was its downfall. Versatile went back to conventional 4-wheel drive designs, and Big Roy remained a one-of-a-kind prototype. Only one was ever built. Today it stands, gigantic and glorious, in the Manitoba Agricultural Museum, a magnificent 8-wheeled dead end that farmers still travel across the country just to lay eyes on. Number 1. The Big Bud 16 V747. And at number 1, there is only one possible choice: the biggest farm tractor ever built. The Big Bud 16 V747. It was born in 1977 in the small town of Havre, Montana, at the Northern Manufacturing Company. Designed by a man named Wilbur Hensler and built by Ron Harmon and his crew, it was a custom, one-of-a-kind machine ordered by the Rossi brothers, cotton farmers near Bakersfield, California, who needed something powerful enough for deep ripping, tearing through compacted soil up to 20 inches down. It cost around $300,000 to build. The name says it all. The 16V is its engine, a Detroit diesel V16, 2-stroke diesel displacing 1,472 cubic inches, fed by dual turbochargers. The 747 is a nod to the Boeing jumbo jet, because that's the scale we're talking about. When it was finished, Big Bud stood 14 feet tall to the top of its cab, stretched around 28 feet long, and with its dual tires, measured over 20 feet wide. Fully ballasted, it weighed about 135,000 pounds. Each of its 8 custom tires stood 8 feet tall. Its fuel tank held hundreds of gallons. Originally it made 760 horsepower. Later owners rebuilt it, first to 900 horsepower, and eventually to around 1,100. Pulling an 80-foot cultivator, Big Bud could till 1 full acre every single minute, covering 60 to 70 acres an hour. It worked in California, then Florida, and in 1997 it came home to Montana, purchased by the Williams brothers of Big Sandy, landing about 60 miles from where it was born. It's recognized in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's largest farm tractor, and it still exists today, still runs and still draws crowds wherever it appears. Nearly 50 years later, no production tractor on Earth has matched it. The Big Bud 747 isn't just unstoppable, it's immortal. If you enjoyed this journey through the giants of the past, let me know down in the comments which one you'd most want to see roar back to life. And if there's a forgotten machine you think deserves a spot on the next list, tell me its name. Until then, keep those old engines running.